really sad to be leaving that.
Hello, my name is Manjunath Shamanna. Welcome to the discussion. The discussion chapter is I have a question about Hinduism, and I welcome for this discussion all the audience and the panelist. There is an expert panelist sitting here. They are going to give their insight, and moderator Tim Aman is there, and he's one of the best in the business, and he's going to take care of all these things. And with that welcome, I will hand over to Vanda for further greetings.
Thank you, Commissioner Shamanna. Good evening, everyone.
Good evening.
Around the bend over there, too. Our officers, the finest from the WSPD, we welcome them as well. Thank you, everyone, for joining us tonight for this very important community conversation. As you know, we are here to discuss Hinduism. And the Human Relations Commission has a series of forums, and they are entitled, I Have a Question About, and whatever the topic may be goes there. So we have done, I have a question about Christianity, I have a question about Judaism, I have a question about Islam, I have a question about religious extremism, and tonight is, of course, I have a question about Hinduism. And so, as many of you probably already know, there was an incident that happened, unfortunately, earlier this summer when the Winston-Salem Hindu temple attempted to, or actually did, erect a sign in Clemens to proudly announce the fact that they found a location to build a new temple. And I think most of us will concur in this room, and I hope in the community at large, that we were very happy and excited to know that the temple was going to be erected in the near future. However, as you probably also know, there was some vandalism that occurred, and the sign was shot several times, and that certainly raised concern for a lot of us in the Winston-Salem community, largely because we are all aware of what's been going on nationwide with the shootings at the various religious places of worship. So we certainly do not want to encourage or condone that type of behavior in our community. And I feel like I can speak for us all when I say that. And so we want to really take tonight as an opportunity to bring awareness to what Hinduism is. We want to be a culturally aware, a culturally diverse, and a culturally inclusive community here in Winston-Salem where everyone feels free to exercise his or her beliefs, cultures, and religious perspectives. And so again, I think it's important that we have this conversation. I think everyone sitting here would agree with that. I would like to take the opportunity to recognize and thank the City of Winston-Salem's Marketing and Communications Department for being here tonight. They're behind the cameras that you see around the room. And what they're doing is they're recording tonight's forum so that you can share this with others who may not have been able to attend tonight. The video for this forum will be on the city's YouTube channel, City of Winston-Salem's YouTube channel, also on the City of Winston-Salem's website, which is www.cityofws.org, and it will be on demand, which means you can pull it up at any time. So just make sure that you share that with others who were unable to attend. Also, I'd like to recognize the Winston-Salem Human Relations Commission. And the Winston-Salem Human Relations Commission serves as an advisory board to the City Council and to Mayor Alan Joines. And what the commission does is they really keep up with what's going on with hot topics and areas of concern in our community. And these areas of concern typically will touch on race relations, cultural relations, and other hot things that are going on in our community. So the commission stays, or they try to stay one step ahead of that, of whatever may be brewing. And if it is something unfortunate that has happened in the community, we try to seize on that so that we can have conversation and discussion, so that no one feels like, okay, this is going on and I don't have a public venue to voice my concerns or my thoughts or my suggestions. So that's a large part of what the Human Relations Commission does. So for Human Relations Commissioners who are with us tonight, would you please stand so that we may properly recognize you? Commissioners, please stand. And furthermore, I would like to thank the Indo-US Cultural Association for really partnering with us on pulling together tonight's program. We thought it was very important to deepen our partnership. We've always had a great partnership with the Indo-US Cultural Association, but for this particular program, we really want to thank and recognize them for being on board with us and bringing this conversation to the forefront. We also have a couple of people with us from Interfaith Winston-Salem and Compassionate Winston-Salem. So we have plenty of community partners here, and we're thrilled and delighted to see you all. And also, last but not least, thank you to my staff for helping to pull this together as well. They are spread out throughout the room. All right, so the purpose. We're here tonight, as I've said, to have a very frank and open discussion in a safe environment. Safe meaning you don't have to feel uncomfortable about asking your questions. You have a panel here who actually, I would consider them experts in the field of Hinduism, because they are the ones who are here to answer and address even your most basic of questions. So no question is too basic. No question is too small. And I would dare say no question would be too complex for these folks here. So don't hesitate. We want you to feel comfortable in asking your questions. And I think what we're planning to do tonight is have everyone to come up to the podium to my left. There's a microphone right here, so you can go up there and ask your questions of the panel throughout the evening.
We're actually going to be distributing cards.
And we'll have
we'll
index
explain
cards.
That. Yes.
Okay.
I'll explain that in just a minute.
Okay, great, thank you. And so what we'll do is have a discussion, including our panel. They will have some questions that are guided questions, but also we want you to feel comfortable to also put forth the questions that you have from the audience. All right, so for the good of the order, I'm going to move on and turn tonight's program over to Commissioner Tim Aumann. He is going to actually be the moderator for the panel discussion. He is a member of the Human Relations Commission, as I've stated, faculty member over at Wake Forest University, chaplain over at Wake Forest University, so we are in very, very good hands. And so, Commissioner Aumann, I'm handing it to you now. Thank you.
Wanda and Manju, thank you very much. I would just want to add to what has already been said, that as a commission, we recognize that if we don't engage religious diversity in our community, if we don't bring people from different religious and philosophical traditions together to talk, if we don't acquire positive and appreciative knowledge of other traditions, then, in the words of Eboo Patel, the founder of the Interfaith Youth Corps, we forfeit the territory to those who are happy to build barriers and to spread lies. We also believe that a big part of the 21st century will be about whether religious difference will be a cause of isolation in our world, a barrier to substantive conversations about the things that actually matter to us, a source of religious violence, or a bridge of opportunity. I think it's the latter which brings us out here tonight. So tonight we're going to be telling some of our stories and reminding one another that storytelling is not just about sharing our own stories repeatedly, but it's also about an exchange of stories between people. So tonight is going to be your job. It's going to be my job to do a lot of deep listening. The reason for that is that our panelists are not only going to be sharing information, they're going to be sharing their emotion and their intent as well. So we will need to be listening for all of the above. Let me share some ground rules for the evening, and they're pretty simple. We'll begin with me asking some introductory questions of our panelists, and they have been instructed to answer them as they feel comfortable in doing so. And so while they are speaking, if you would like a card, an index card to write a question down, if you would simply raise your hand. Jamie, if you'd raise your hand there, you're going to have cards and pencils. You can write questions down. You can direct questions to one of our panelists, or you can direct it to the entire panel. And those cards will be brought up to me, and then we will address those questions as we move forward. The other thing, and really the last thing I'd want to say to you, is that the Human Relations Commission is committed to providing a learning environment in which the worth and dignity of all persons is affirmed and where everyone is treated with civility and respect. And so our conversations tonight will hopefully reflect that commitment of our commission. So what I'd like to do is to give you a chance to meet our panelists. And so we're going to start on my left and your right and give you a chance to meet the folks who are with us tonight.
Great. Thanks so much, Tim. My name is Ardra, and I'm deeply happy to be here with all of you today. So I grew up in Winston-Salem, but I'm currently a student at the University of Pennsylvania and president of our Hindu student organization there. I'm also currently organizing something very exciting that's coming to America, which is Global Dharma Conference, which is a celebration of Hindu ethics, morals, and principles. So amidst all of this, kind of a big concern that I have is mobilizing Hindu youth and activating that generational link between the past and the future, and maintaining the spiritual traditions that are so deeply important for our community's growth. Thank you.
Hello, my name is Shrikant Gante. I have been part of the Greensboro and the Triad area since 1997, and been part of the Hindu temple for the last 12 years. I work at Volvo Trucks as a manager for an engineering group, and I just wanted to thank you for the opportunity to come and discuss the Hindu religion today.
Good evening. My name is Michelle Voss-Roberts. I teach theology at Wake Forest University School of Divinity. And the reason that I have the privilege of being on this panel tonight is that as a part of that work, I get to teach courses in interfaith studies, and some of my students are here tonight. It's good to see you. And I also teach courses in comparative theology. Comparative theology is a field that believes that we think better about our own traditions, or in new and interesting ways, when we study deeply the traditions of others. And so for the last 12, 15 years or so, I've been engaged in a study of Hinduism, which indeed has been very inspiring for my own work and has provided a lot of very interesting ideas and questions to help me and my students at Wake Forest think about our own beliefs.
Good evening. My name is Krishna Sarabhi. I'm the General Secretary of the temple that's coming up in Clemens. Hinduism is an ocean. So even I have questions. Hopefully we will discuss together and find out. Thank you.
Good. Okay, thank you. I think probably a good starting place for us is to get a better understanding of what the Hindu community looks like in the city of Winston-Salem and Forsyth County and in the city of Clemens. So I'm going to throw that out to everyone to help us get a better idea of what does Hindu life look like in our area. Is that a fair question?
Yeah.
Okay.
Basically, Hindus, they have a tradition of getting up in the morning, and then they, as a religious part of it, we look at our hands, and then we pray one prayer for the Mother Earth, because we'll be getting out of the bed and then stamping on the Mother Earth. So there is a prayer, to excuse us, because we will be standing upon the earth, or we will be stamping on or abusing the Mother Earth for our day-to-day activities. So that is how it starts, and then we, as a religious part, we will take bath and then go to there is a guard's room, and then we go to the guard's room and pray for, probably, it depends on how deeply they are involved in the religious activities. It can stay from 5 minutes to an hour or so sometimes, depending upon what day of the month also. So they do all those religious part of the things in the morning, and then it will be any other day just like anybody, like we take a cup of coffee and then go to the office and then come back. And then in the evening, there is another ritual, like, pray to the God once again for making this day so happy and everything going smooth. And then, of course, we will have our dinner, and then that is the regular day-to-day activity for any Hindu. Overall, whether it is Forsyth County or any other place.
Yeah, but community-wise, I think both Winston-Salem, of course, Greensboro, people have been come forward to teach kids about the Hinduism. Like we call it Bala Vihar, which is kids
School.
school, I think. Yeah, and fortunately, we have both places have schools to teach kids. This will, they do it on Sundays to teach kids about Hinduism. So that way, people are aware, not aware, like they are actively participating in Hindu rituals. But at the same time, we are all very active in cultural activities, whole Hindu community.
If I can add, I think 20 years ago when I came to Greensboro, there were very few Indian population. Since then, just like any other city in the United States, the city has diversified very well, and there are more number of Hindus also part of it, and it's really a great culture we have within the U.S. to have multiple culture living in the same city and being able to live in harmony. And so the population of Hindus has increased, and also just like any other religion, I think we need a place for gathering, for our cultural activities, and also to pray. So the citizens, the Hindu citizens in Winston-Salem have been able to come together to start this activity.
So I guess a couple of questions I would have immediately is how many, we know that a temple is, monies are being raised to build a temple in the village of Clemens. I'm aware that there's a temple in Greensboro. Are those the only two temples in our area, or are there others?
In this Triad area, those are the two temples. You will see one in Greensboro and one in, coming up, of course, in Winston-Salem. But if you take North Carolina as a whole, there is a few more temples just in Raleigh and Cary area, Morrisville and that area, and there is few temples in Charlotte. So as in North Carolina, there are more, but in this Triad area, if you take, there are only two, yes.
So I come out of the Christian tradition, and so if someone were to ask me, what does Christianity look like in the city of Winston-Salem or Forsyth County, I would be hard-pressed to explain that, knowing that Christianity is very diverse with many traditions and theologies. And so maybe a good question as we get started here is Hinduism one tradition, or is it multiple traditions? So for someone who knows very little of Hinduism, how would you answer that question, knowing that the dominant Christian culture, our area, has multiple denominations and interpretations within those individual denominations regarding theology and worldview? Does that make sense?
Yeah.
I can give a little bit of background to that.
Yeah.
So there's a conversation happening among scholars that Hinduism is kind of an umbrella term that was applied from people outside of India to describe, well, what is the religion here in the Indian subcontinent? People from the West were looking for something called religion, and they liked to be able to put a label on it, like Christianity or Judaism or something like that. And so the word Hinduism ended up, it's a word with roots, and I'm sure the panelists will share where the word comes from, but roots in India, but it was a very convenient catch-all for people from the outside to say, well, these are Hindus. And so what we have, though, historically is a great diversity of practices and texts. If you look way back, you get these texts called the Vedas, which are all about doing sacrifices. But then fast forward a millennium or 500 years, and you have people sitting in the forest and meditating. And then you fast forward another 1,000 years or so, and it's very important for many traditions to be in love with and very devoted to God, in very particular, in diverse ways of naming God. And so somehow Hinduism becomes the catch-all for all of these diverse things. And so as you can imagine, especially with India being a very large place, regions contribute to the diversity as well. And so, the way people practice and believe in one place in India can be very different. And then you go to the individual level where somebody's preference for this name for God rather than another determines their practice or their stage of life. And so one thing you can notice about Hindus in this region is that the students are very serious students, because when they're young, that's their duty to be a good student. And then when they move into the householder stage of life, their orientation is different when they retire. So there's a great deal of diversity within Hinduism, and I'm hoping that the panelists will also sort of be able to illuminate how that looks on the ground here in Winston-Salem.
Basically, Michelle is right. In a sense, the human life has been divided into 4 quarters. It could be 80 years of a human life or 100 years. It's 4 quarters, and the first quarter starts with the being student. And that's nothing but just study. And then the next 20 years is, make a livelihood for yourself and your community. And then the third quarter will, make your family ready, get into your family and then make your family and earn for your family and develop your family. And then the 4th quarter pretty much being a charity, give back to the society. And so once these are the 4 quarters of the Hindus' teachings, which is pretty much goes around. And that is the reason, probably, as Michelle said, the students are first 20 years, they don't do anything other than just studies. The focus is so much on the studies. There is nothing else to do for them.
But just to add on and also kind of take the focus back to the question that Tim brought up earlier, which is Hinduism one tradition or many traditions, right?
Yes, okay.
So, adding on to what Michelle said, really that entire idea that we can have a conglomerate of traditions and that is okay is a fundamental aspect of Hindu way of life. That conglomeration and not assimilation in the sense that everything becomes homogenous, but rather different things can coexist and a society can still function and support and be interdependent of each other. It's a really kind of key concept. So when we see this, oftentimes, I remember when I was studying AP World History in high school, they were so confident. They would say Hinduism is a polytheistic religion, and and students would believe it, and teachers would profess that, and it's really not that way, because what we see is many of the Upanishadic traditions, or the traditions of kind of esoteric mysticism, if you will, really stress the idea that there is one consciousness, right? There's maybe many, maybe one, but traditionally the idea of one consciousness with many different forms of expression. And so when people have ideas of gods or goddesses or deities that they worship, it's all in recognition that at the end of the day, what you see as an expression of that form is really just your perspective, and the formless is the substratum. So if that makes sense, what you have is consciousness as a whole, and then consciousness takes a form, based on the particular devotions and aspirations and emotions of that devotee. So one of the reasons why Hinduism has survived for so long, especially as being one of the oldest religions alive, is because it can assimilate and it can take in a lot of different religions, quote unquote, different faith traditions, and incorporate it and still be peaceful in that. Do you want to add?
Sure. I think, again, continuing on with the discussion, I guess we can come to the meaning of the word Hindu and where it came from. Just like Dr. Roberts said, I think it is. It came in from the Britishers when during the 16th century when they were traveling around the world, trying to travel around the world, trying to find things. And there is a river, Indus, in the northwestern part of India, and because of the lack of a term for the religion, it became the Indus was pronounced as Hindu, and that's where the word came in, and people belonging to that area became Hindus. That's one thing, and the underlying principles or the tradition of Hinduism is based on definition of the way of life, and what we call as dharma. And basically it defines on how you live and what is your role in this world. Also, another thing, another basic principle is it says that we are all one, not as human beings, but everything is somehow or the other related to the Creator, and that's the basic principle of the Hinduism. So you can, but there is still differences, and Hinduism the whole teachings of Hinduism is based on recognizing the differences, yet recognizing what is similar in each and everything and each and every living being on this earth.
So I would have a question about communal life, both on the subcontinent and perhaps even here, that in some faith traditions you have mosques and synagogues and churches with people who provide leadership there, whether that be an imam or a rabbi or a minister or a priest. And so a question I would have, what does communal life look like, knowing that it may very well be different depending on where you're looking? What would community life look like, and how is leadership provided? And I want to go back to the whole issue of texts and the relationship between an ancient text or a spiritual text or religious text and communal life. Does that make sense?
Yeah. I think we should walk back to the olden days of India for a couple of seconds here, because the way it was organized was based on the role you played in the community. There were 4 different groups: Brahmana, Kshatriya, Vaishya, and Shudra. The Brahmana community was the teachers, and the Kshatriya was the people who were ruling, the rulers and the soldiers who were protecting the community, and then Vaishya were the businessmen, and then Shudra were the workers who were serving the community. And like everything in the world, it has taken the evolution, and now the modern day is a little bit different. And in today's world, it's not based on the role you play in the community anymore. It's based on which family you were born in. And that's how the culture is in the today's world. Anybody want?
But also, like with communal life in general, right? If you talk about religious communal life, we have Christians who go to church every Sunday. We've seen Muslims who often go to prayer on Fridays, and Fridays are auspicious day. But within the Hindu lifestyle, worship, it can be conducted in a public place, and oftentimes temples are so important for building that sense of community. But at the same time, Hinduism also gives people to worship in the privacy of their own homes. And, that worship that you do in your house may be just as important for you as going to a temple, for example. So in that way, the community is largely built on not just religious terms, but also the cultural structures and cultural celebrations that they hold really valuable to, their sense of transmission to the next generation.
There are religious aspects of which are differentiated between what you can do at the temple and what you can do at home and all those kind of things. It is when it comes to Christianity, people go to the church on Sundays or some other fixed days. Maybe Islam people may go on a Friday, whereas we don't have that kind of a strict rules in our communal or a religious aspect to go to a temple. You can go on any day. As you know, most of the people, we have so many gods in our religion, and then we have so many gods, and then each god, even if you provide one temple for one god, there will be so many temples comes up. So, and that is the truth. And in India, every street has 4 or 5 temples belongs to each different deities. And then same thing here in US also. When it comes to US life, the communal life is, if you go to Raleigh, of course in Triad area we have only 2 temples where we are trying to, bring in all the religious beliefs of the people living in here into one temple. Whereas when you go to a bigger city like Raleigh or Cary area, there are specific temple for specific gods. So you may just find 7-8 temples in one city like New York. Each is having their own deities, and then they don't do any other ceremonies other than just that deity. So it is same as in India. That said, but the rituals, what goes on in every temple is same. That makes it much more so beautiful that it could be any deity or any temple, but what goes on inside the temple or inside my house, a guard room, what I do is same thing what any other temple is doing. So we pretty much believe that it does not matter who is the deity, what name you have given to him, we all follow the same rituals as such.
And you asked about religious leadership, and this can be something that for outsiders can be kind of confusing. So the people who perform the rituals are brahmanas, right? From the first group of people that Srikanth mentions, and but in order to be a priest in a temple, you have to have some very specialized ritual training, which you've had, and I know you have as well, to some extent. And so very learned people up here on this panel. But then what we often see in public is a different sort of figure, which is the guru. And so these are very charismatic and deeply spiritual people who have become teachers to others. And so often these gurus will function as important spiritual masters, even from a long distance away. So someone might eventually get to go meet their guru, but also now today in a time of a lot of technology, it's possible to get webcasts and to see the teachings, and somehow even from afar, you can tell the deep spiritual wisdom of some of these folks. And so it's a different sort of religious authority. It's not a ritual authority, it's a sort of spiritual and teaching authority.
That was excellent, actually. I think thanks for bringing up that point you made, Dr. Roberts. I think one of the beliefs in Hinduism is that everybody believes that you can reach the God only through the teacher. So everybody has a guru, what we call a Sadguru, the guru who, the teacher, who can actually reach the God for them. So everybody believes that they have to go through the guru who they believe in, and he will show them the path to salvation.
So let me encourage you to continue to write your questions and just raise your hand. These are great questions. So one of the things that I think may be really helpful, and I could have my dates wrong here, and I'm shocked that I actually know this date. February of 1968 is when I first learned of Hinduism, when the Beatles made their way to India. And because the entire world under the age of 21 was paying attention to the Beatles, they also started paying attention to Hinduism, or what they thought was Hinduism. And so the question I would have for you is, not unlike Buddhism, when it made its way from the East to Europe and to North America and other places, took on a very distinctive North American or European flavor in translation. So the question I would have, as Hinduism has made its way from the subcontinent of India to the village of Clemens, Winston-Salem, the University of Pennsylvania, what is unique and different about Hinduism culturally in terms of communal religious life as it manifests itself here in comparison perhaps to what it might look like in India? Does that make sense? Okay.
Wow, it's a difficult question. I'm going to go by example. Like I think in India, we do rituals called vrata. In that, they say you do according to your capacity. So just because somebody is doing 24-hour puja, you cannot do 24-hour prayer. Like that, when you when you come here, you realize that you have so many other things going on, but you have to still fit into your schedule. So you may not do as you do back in India, but you still follow the path. So I think that's what I can say.
Yeah, and I'd like to say, like, if Hinduism had a contract, you know, probably the first clause there would be flexibility, because everybody does, you know, really just as much as they feel fulfills them. And so in the ancient scriptures, they compared this religion of eternal truth. They didn't call it Hinduism back then. They called it Sanatana Dharma. And the Sanatana Dharma, they compared it to a tree, because this tree was the kind of tree that provided whatever fruits you wanted. So if you wanted to perform rituals, if you wanted wealth, if you wanted education, if you wanted knowledge, if you wanted mystical powers, you know, whatever you wanted, you could get from this tree. And so today, like speaking for the youth especially, and what youth want from this tree of Hinduism that we see, youth are particularly drawn to the more philosophical and metaphysical aspects of this tradition. We already see meditation, yoga, things like that becoming very mainstream, but youth are so much more drawn towards just these core principles of nonviolence, of peace, of seeing divinity in all people, of recognizing the importance of nature and the interdependence man has with nature, of recognizing the fundamental humanity of all beings, because all beings are part of that supreme soul, that eternal divinity is present within man. And for man to recognize the God within each other is the fundamental way for not only peace externally, but peace internally, right? So man is searching for happiness and peace in his life. And we see all religions try to give kind of a solution package for that and say, here, if you do these things, you know, you got it. You got the peace and the happiness that you're looking for. So in that same way, people are drawn towards those fundamental, immutable aspects of Hinduism.
As Tim said about the Beatles, I just want to give a quote about how this was introduced to US from India. Was I think around Swami Vivekananda, 1960s. I think he was in Chicago. There was
1800.
1800. Sorry about that. Yeah. So during that time, there was the first World Conference of Religion was there, and then there was a representation from Hinduism, and his name is Swami Vivekananda. Swami means teacher, basically. You know, he's as my friend Krishna said, the one who shows the path. So he represented Hinduism, and then he came to the Chicago, and all the other religion teachers were speaking, and then when his turn came, he started with a address saying that, my dear brothers and sisters. This became very new to the Western culture, where everybody was addressing the audience as the ladies and gentlemen. This guy, this person, address the whole audience as my dear sisters and brothers. This is the Hinduism. This is the essence where we see everybody as, so closely with our. So this is when, during that time, people were astonished, and then this became a news in Chicago at that time, saying there is a saint from India who called all of us as brothers and sisters. And so that is one good incident. It is etched in most of the Indians' school system that how Hinduism has been introduced to Western.
Yeah, and I'd like to pick up on that because Swami Vivekananda's interpretation of Hinduism as really teaching the unity of all religions has been extremely influential in the U.S., and it's been, from my observation, very, very important to the Hindu community as well, given that the Hindu community in the U.S. often houses in one temple people from many different places in India, where if they were back in India, they might actually be arguing with each other religiously, right? And so to emphasize the unity of religion, which is definitely a deep and ancient part of this tradition, that's been something that's really helped the community to flourish in North America. And so part of when you start to study Sanskrit texts, you start to see the theological fights that these traditions have with one another, those that worship Vishnu versus those that worship Shiva, or the arguments with Buddhists, and it gets very technical and metaphysical, and that's also there.
Yeah,
but in the U.S., the unity has been extremely important.
Yeah.
It's good to know that Christian communities have avoided those kinds of things.
I think the panelists are making excellent comments about to response to your question. The way I look at it is I remember the basic principles of Gautama Buddha, who founded Buddhism. He said that the root cause of all our miseries and suffering is our desires, right? So everybody has desires in this world. You cannot avoid that. And when there is desires, there is also miseries that come along with it. So when there is misery and suffering, you want somebody to go to. And that's one of the things that I, as a citizen of the world, feel it that we may all be going to different places to solve our miseries and suffering, but we are all the same because we are going to some place where He is there for the answer, whether it could be a church or whether it could be a mosque or whether it's a temple. But the basic reason why we are going is to find an answer to our miseries and sufferings. And so, to answer your question, whether it's in India, the way of life, or the way we follow the religion, or whether it's here, it's the same. I see it as the same.
So one of the questions here that I was assuming would be asked at some point, if you take into consideration the number of people I see every day at Wake Forest walking around with yoga mats, I would just assume that we have a huge Hindu population on campus, although I suspect that's not true. And so one of the questions is, what does yoga have to do with Hinduism?
Oh,
So you can probably correct me, Michelle. I'm not sure. So yoga comes from the Sanskrit root, yuj, and that's been many different meanings for that. It could mean yoked, one meaning, and then people have consequently, extrapolated from that to say union. And so the entire premise of yoga did not start as kind of like an acrobatic, like exercise, weight loss, diet fad that we see today. In fact, it was completely removed from, you have to see yoga in its context. So context is so deeply important. And when, yoga started as a philosophy, actually. There were people who studied the philosophy of yoga and they practiced it because yoga meant, it meant yoking the mind and the body in a way that it could take you to a transcendental state of experience of an ultimate reality. That's, and that included postures, breathing, and several other things. And so just like this tree, people take what they want from it. And so if people feel that it benefits their body in terms of exercise, or if it gives them a sense of, feeling healthy, then that's great, by all means. But it's so important to also realize the roots from which it came. Do you want to add?
Yeah, no, that's really good. And in the Yoga Sutras, the only thing it says about positioning is that you should sit comfortably. And so there have been some excellent books in the last even 10 years on the history of yoga and where did this contemporary physical culture come from. And it turns out to be a very international collaboration that, things going to the West, and then folks bringing things back to India, and Indians making it their own again. This is that adaptability. And so you would maybe expect that when you go to India, everyone's doing yoga all the time on their yoga mats. And I kind of hoped that when I went to India, because I really enjoy yoga. But I didn't see that at all. When you see yoga in public, it might be very early in the morning in a park. There might be some people joined together. And I don't by any means have a handle on all of this, but when I actually got to do yoga like I do yoga here in Winston-Salem, it was up in Rishikesh where the Beatles went, and there are all these ashrams where Westerners come to do yoga, and there are people in India who are very happy to teach them that. And so it's this fascinating international multicultural phenomenon that definitely has roots in Indian culture.
So one of the questions has to do with the caste system and about people who would be identified as untouchables. What do people need to know about that?
Basically, the caste system was kind of a offshoot of the system we had earlier days. If you go back like 1,000 years or 2,000 years back, the society has been divided by the profession the family or the person, head of the house used to do. He could be a king, and then he'll be, one, not a caste, it's a varna, and then he could be a teacher, he could be another profession. And then like this, there are 4 varnas were there, and then as the political system crept in, or the human desires have grown up, what has happened is, okay, a king's son has to become a king. He cannot do any other thing, and then they are all become kshatriyas. And then a priest, his son, how bad he is does not matter. He wants to be a priest. And then they all become like Brahmins. And then it is, the caste became these varnas, or the divisions, have more become like a by birth rather than by profession. And then slowly that creeped into the society. And then, the people who were all being teaching things and being the priest and judges, and they were all become Brahmins. They were all called as Brahmins because they are the one who is, Brahma means basically the God. So the person who knows the God is the Brahmin. So does not matter his generation, next generation does know anything about it or not, but they all become Brahmins. Down the line, like all the kings, they don't want to give up their kingdom or the seat or the power, so they made their children as kings. So the Kshatriyas, they started ruling the countries or the states or the kingdom. So this made, and then the business people, they don't want to lose their business. So all the Vaishyas, that is by profession, they are all business people basically. They all handed over their business to their children. So it has become more like a birthright rather than the profession I am capable of. I may not be capable of being a Brahmin, but just because I was born to a Brahmin family, I became a Brahmin, like that, just because I am. So that left with these untouchables, which we are coming to the 4th varna, called Shudras. They were basically serving this society. They were not untouchables if you go back like 1,000 or 2,000 years back to the Indian community. They were like any other citizens. They were doing, helping the society to come up and helping in every sense of it. They were equally considered. What happened was, because of this dominant caste took over their own professions by nature, the leftovers are the Shudras, and they are left to do all these things. And then basically the hygienic part became a major issues, and due to that hygienic issues around them, they become untouchables. Okay, they carry all these viruses, infections, and all these things. So they became untouchables, and then they were, okay, don't come to this temple, because temple is a place where a lot of mass people will be there. Don't come to the temple because you may be infectious. Don't come to the school. Don't send your children to the school because your children may be carrying. So this untouchability became kind of a social tragedy of Hindus. And then, so it basically, the people who are born to these servants remained as servants, and for the last 60, 70 years of Indian independence, government is working towards getting out of this caste system and bringing the normalcy into the society. And then I think anybody can add anything to this one.
I think Manju explained how this caste system started in India very well. But just to be straightforward, it's kind of a sour thing that we don't like to talk about it straight away, right? But however, the interpretation is that it's personally, it's a wrong interpretation of the original caste system, that somehow politically it was used for our convenience to make it that way. And I don't think anybody knows where it started and when it started. But like Manju said, I think the citizens of India have realized that it's a wrong thing, and we are evolving out of it as we speak. But yes, there is caste system, and nobody knows when it started, and everybody has realized that it was the wrong interpretation.
And the rank practice also. The practice was the worst part of that whole system.
Yeah, so like nobody is like, I think the entire world, any major civilization has seen the systematic oppression of certain groups. That's not new, but it was particularly, and it is particularly difficult to recover from that kind of treatment. I mean, we see it in America, maybe a little bit more subtle, not as directly as untouchability or as anything like that, but we see America facing these issues of inequality and justice and social, power struggles. And this is something that India is really struggling with now too, and hopefully moving forward in progress.
One thing that I observed that is so interesting to me, in that comparative setting, we see oppression in all societies, and but the reasons are different, and that's fascinating. So this issue of purity, there's a deep sense in the ancient tradition of purity and pollution, and this even goes into things like why you're preparing the space so carefully for the new temple, because of ideas about what's pure and impure, and preparing a place for God. And this whole thing about purity as related to people becomes much more difficult even to practice or be aware of in the modern world, because whereas if your family's always lived in one village and you all know who's related to whom and what their job is supposed to be, it's one thing. But if you're all sort of on a bus or a train together, traveling from all different places, so the modern world really brought about a revolution that's continuing, and along with this awareness of injustice, so lots of changes in the last.
So a follow-up question
centuries.
here, is the caste system followed in the United States or even in Winston-Salem?
Definitely, I would say no. That is one beauty of being, in a place like US or UK or any other place. Here, there is no. Why I'm saying is you cannot say no to school for any child. It does not matter because of the rules. And the people who are coming here to US are pretty much elected Indians. They could be from any caste, but they are well educated. They are very good, having a very good profession, and they are pretty rich. So. And even in the temples or any social gatherings, we never think of it. It's not a part of our even thought process in the US.
So I'm cognizant of our time, and one question I certainly want to ask, and I suspect other people are expecting me to ask. Back in July, at the temple site in the village of Clemens, someone or multiple people discharged the shotgun multiple times at the sign designating the site itself. So the question I would have is, what have been the reverberations within the Hindu community as a result of what clearly is an act of vandalism, but certainly could be interpreted as a hate incident or even a hate crime for that matter. So the question is, what have been the reverberations within the Hindu community as a result of that act?
Yeah, I mean, one thing is certainly the community was disappointed, but by that act, we found out that there is a lot of community support. the emails we have been getting, the calls we have been getting from various religious organizations was tremendous. So I think sometimes bad things start to happen to see the good things. So even though I see it as like a maybe possible hate crime, but the response from the community, Hindu community, as well as the other religious communities have been very supportive. I'm very happy about that. I mean, the moment we saw the board written with the bullets, we started getting emails from people and Facebook posts saying, you are welcome to Clemens, and it's just a tragedy, but we all welcome you to Clemens community, and we'd love to see your temple come up. So that's the message we have been getting through everybody.
Adding to that disappointment among the community, another thing was fear was there. It's not correct if we don't mention that part of the human psychology. The moment they heard about the incident, there was a fear factor among the community people. Oh, let's not go there. What's the security there? What kind of how well we are safe there? As Krishna said, the outside community, other than the Hindus, they came forward and they supported us. And then, of course, one thing is we are very thankful to the police department. Whenever we ask, they post a couple of cops onto our site. So whenever we have a big event, we request them, and then they come and stay throughout until the last car leaves. They are going to stay there. So the moment they saw that this kind of arrangement has been done and the support they saw from outside the Hindu community, the Hindu community as such started feeling much comfortable. So I would say as we go forward, the fear factor may slowly go down and bring the community into this site. Just to quote an example, and I'm thankful to the Interfaith group, close to 40 to 50 people from Interfaith community, they visited our land last 15 days back when we had a big event in our temple site. Around 40 to 50 people came, and they participated along with us just like any other Hindus. And they were participated in every aspect of it. I was a little bit hesitant in the beginning whether they will come and touch our gods or not, but they all came, and they all came forward, and the encouraging words we got from the society as such was tremendous. So I'm happy about that, and hopefully going forward, the community will realize there is nothing to be fear about it. When we stand together as a society, as a Winston-Salem society, we can face these kind of things. A lot of my friends who are Christians, they said, even our boards are being vandalized. Our church boards have been vandalized. So, so there is nothing to be, it is not targeted just being Hindus. It is, something has been happened, just forget it and then move on, kind of thing. So. Yeah, mayor visited our land, and he gave his encouraging words, and then our interfaith group was very encouraging. They visited, Michelle visited our temple site on that day. She was very participative and educating the other folks around. It was very nice to have them.
Can I add
Yes, please.
a couple of sentences? I think one of the basic principles of Hinduism is ahimsa. Ahimsa is non-violence, and I feel that everybody has equal opportunity to live in this world, and nobody has to be threatened by each other, and that's one of the principles we live by. And hopefully, of course, the incident like this will definitely put fear in the community. But I would definitely thank for organizing this panel, because people who feel that there is difference should look at this and think that we are all the same, even though we are different. And that's something, if everybody can recognize, I think we will have a better place to live.
Yeah, and it was so wonderful when, when the Interfaith members, the 40 or 50 of them, actually came and visited our temple site, because there was so much joy in being able to explain our traditions and being able to connect with them, in being able to, just share similarities, and for them to say, oh, you know what, we do that too. And that sense of connection was just, it brings like such a deep level of fulfillment, because it connects an individual from their very core to another individual. And so I think our community, our Hindu community here, is just, making that attempt right now to really reach out. And everybody is so willing, at the same time, shy and nervous and kind of going through all those emotions. But we really want to make that connection with the community, the larger community in Winston-Salem. That's very special for us.
So a question I would have, and when I look at the audience, I know there are people in this room who have been doing deep interfaith work for a very, very long time. For others in our community, interfaith work, building interfaith relationships can be threatening to them. And so a question I would have for those who where interfaith interactions with people, other faith traditions, is a new thing. What are some things you would want to say to those who are here, for those who will watch this on television, in terms of helping people deal with their own insecurities or fears about stepping outside of their own faith tradition and interacting, in this case, with members of our growing Hindu community?
I would say, come on out and talk to us. Sometimes you can sit at one place and think about, assume things, but if you have a dialogue, I think then you will understand everybody's trying to do the same thing. Like you said, everybody's trying to, everybody has desires, and then comes out miseries. So everybody's trying to understand how we fit in this world, and how to make sense of everything. So to come and talk to us is the best thing to go by. And of course, the Interfaith Council in Winston-Salem is doing a tremendous job of getting that dialogue conveyed to everybody. So I think that's very nice.
Yeah, just don't have questions. Bring up your questions and then ask questions to anybody who comes across you. It could be Michelle, it could be Shrikant, or it could be Surabhi and Krishna Surabhi, or even it could be Tim. Don't have your questions unanswered. Communication is the best way where we can resolve our issues. And as in our community, you see people who are doctors, surgeons, who take care of your health. There are professors who are taking care of your children's education. There are IT professionals who are making the business work as normal as possible. There are engineers who are contributing to it could be Volvo truck, or it could be Ford, or it could be any other, or it could be NASA, or it could be Boeing, and students like Aridra, who are contributing to the society in so many ways. So we are not just, when it comes to Hindus or Indians, we are not just IT professionals or anything like that. There are renowned doctors are there. In our community, there are hundreds of doctors are there who are taking care of your health. There are professors who are teaching your kids the most valuable things. It could be physics, it could be chemistry, it could be biology. There are, as I said, there are business people are there who are trying to serve this community. So nothing to worry about us. We are all very social elements. We come to any place you want and then answer those questions, and or you can come to us and then ask questions. We are more than happy to answer anything or any questions you have or any doubts you have. So encourage your community, encourage your neighborhood, encourage your churches to ask questions instead of having questions. That is the best part, and communicate with us so that we can, remove any misunderstanding you have about any Hindus.
So a question that's perhaps related to that. Different religious communities have yearly cycles. Many in this room, and perhaps those who are watching on television, know when Easter is going to roll around, or when Christmas, perhaps Rosh Hashanah or Yom Kippur or Ramadan. Probably very few people understand what the yearly rituals or cycles are for the Hindu community. So could you share what those would be?
One ritual everybody probably Wanda can watch for it, and Michelle can watch for it, and you team also, is Diwali. We celebrate Diwali in a big way in October, November time period, and it will be in Wake Forest usually. And it will be celebrated very well. That is in significance of victory of love over hate. And so that is one biggest, Diwali is one of the biggest festival. Diwali basically is festival of lights. And so we observe that during the time of October. And another one, big one, is May 10, around May 2nd week of, that falls with our another festival called Festival of Colors, and that will be celebrated in the open amphitheater area, and that will be attended by close to 2,000 to 3,000. And it will be in an open theater. That will be a very good occasion to come and join us. And other festivals, which are religious festivals, could be, there are so many religious festivals. We cannot, starting from January 1st through December 31st, we will do the religious festivals. But these are in Winston-Salem, people can get to these two main festivals where you can interact with a lot of Indians on the stage. And anybody can add anything.
I think, yeah, definitely, just like anybody else, Indians love parties. And in the name of God, we will definitely eat good food. So besides that, I think, yes, we do have annual cycles and we have our regular festivals. However, the only thing why it is not as distinct as the other religion festival is because the Hindus, most of the Hindus follow lunar calendar, which is compared to solar calendar, the days are off. So sometimes the festivals may come in October and sometimes in November, and so that makes it a little bit of confusing to everyone else. However, yes, we do have our regular festival. Our New Year is in March and April, sometime between March and April, for example. And most of our festivals, like Manju said, it's based on demolishing the evil, but protecting the good.
So in general, are non-Hindus welcome at
Absolutely.
There you go.
Absolutely.
Absolutely.
I don't think
Yeah.
Hindu, like we said in the beginning, there was nothing, there was not even a name for the practice we used to have. So everybody is open. We are to come and participate. I think it's.
And if I can add one thing to bring this back around to your original question about fear and what to advise people who are interested but maybe afraid. I think sometimes the fear is from we're all very nice and we don't want to offend anybody, and often that can keep us from taking the step out to visit one of the festivals or to ask questions, and there is that step of being uncomfortable, and but always very worth it. And one of the rules of, I think, interfaith dialogue should be, or interfaith relations is, don't be afraid to make mistakes. Because, if you're stepping into a new space, you're probably, not going to do everything right, but you can ask questions and you can learn, and you can learn from one another, and you can laugh, right? Because we're humans and we're just people and we can learn from one another. But that, I think so much of our fear is because we want to leave people alone so that, we show our respect, but we can get so much further when we engage.
A good example of that is I took a group of Wake Forest students to India, to Calcutta, and we'll be doing that again in December for a couple of weeks. And the last time I was there, we were in Kaligat, and I may be pronouncing it incorrectly, and there's a Kali temple there. And I so wanted to go inside, but I was nervous and anxious for all of those reasons, and I was standing there looking and staring in. And finally, this very small, petite, older woman, I guess, was paying attention to my dis-ease, and she just walked up and took me by the hand and led me in. Which, the point is, people appreciate a good faith effort, even if we say something that may not, in fact, be correct. And so we learn in that experience. A question here that I think is really helpful: what are some of the stereotypes Hindus face on a regular basis?
One is, of course, accent. The second is, a lot of questions arises. Some of the Indians, they wear red dots on their, so that's another thing which we all get questions about. Why is blood is coming out or something like that? So, that is some typical questions. And then when we do our religious rituals, we change our costumes. This is not the costumes. Probably Michelle and folks who attended, they might have seen the priest is wear his own, not only the priest, everybody usually wears a different kind of costumes. Those are the things, and then the way we do the ceremonies is quite different. Those questions, who attend the temple, what are you doing that one, and what is this and what is that, those kind of differences are there. That will be mostly asked question. Any other thing you can think of?
I think other things possibly is the form of our idols we worship. It's all different, and some of them is attributed to animals, like the elephant god, for example. So those are the things that may kind of make it a little bit difficult for everybody to understand. But I guess the way to look at it is that, like we said in the beginning, every thing and every being has a purpose, and we respect every thing and every non-living thing. So whatever form you want to pray, it's you are invoking from your own self. And it's just that we are praying those gods and goddesses or deities in that form, and nothing is wrong and nothing is right in this circumstance. So those are the things that we.
Oh, yeah. So actually, I just wanted to bring up the red dot. I think other audience members had also probably expressed interest in learning a little bit more about it. So the red dot that we usually wear, and you can feel free to add, but we place the red dot on our forehead because it's symbolic of a sacred location within our own body system. So the same way the body has different energy centers, this area between the forehead is considered very sacred. And so in meditation, or when you want to focus your attention on your breathing, you can just focus on the area between the two eyebrows. And that area specifically, so putting the red dot there signifies invoking that internal energy from within. And it also signifies a connection to a higher sense of divinity, to connect to that power that, innervates this entire universe.
Yeah, I could not have said it better, actually. I think in Sanskrit there is a word called prana, and prana is where the soul resides, and what we believe is that that's where it's residing, and it's one of the important point to focus, because our body is just a tool to meet our purpose in this world. But most important is the most important part is the soul. That's one of the Hindu principles. And the dot signifies the location of the soul in the body.
So we have time for maybe just two more questions very quickly. One question was asked, what is the meaning of salvation in Hinduism?
Okay, so there are four aspects of Hindu tradition. And if everybody has heard about Bhagavad Gita, which is a scripture from which was narrated by Lord Krishna to Arjuna. Arjuna is considered as the people of the world, and in that there are four things called dharma, artha, kama, and moksha. Dharma is the actions or the way of life, and artha is the money or the wealth, and kama is the desires, and then moksha is the salvation. So a person can take any path. There is Hinduism, there is no bound on you have to do this in order to reach the end. So the paths may be plenty, but the goal is the same. And the goal is what is salvation, which is moksha, which is to rid of this worldly life and join the Lord. And the definition of Lord is in Hinduism is the Brahma. So the goal of any Hindu is the soul has to meet the Brahman, who is the creator, go back to there and rid of all this worldly life. And salvation means that you want to reach that location, and it's hard. And the path to salvation is hard, but you have to go through the phases of your life.
And just to add to that, it's so hard, you need many thousands of lifetimes to reach it. And so this is why future lives, past lives, coming back as, someone who lives in a different place, or maybe as an animal if you're not doing so well, that's your karma. And so it's this religion of grace where you just get so many opportunities to reach that goal.
So last question. At Wake Forest, we're starting this year for the first time a Hindu Student Association. And so one of the questions that we're asking our office and the chaplain's office is, how do we support our Hindu students on campus? And so I'm asking this question perhaps on behalf of non-Hindus in our community. How do we support our Hindu neighbors, the Hindu community, members of the Hindu temple? What are things that we can do to be more supportive of our growing Hindu community?
I would say in any kind of university campus, there's kind of a way to kickstart a new faith tradition that's, just blossoming with maybe a few members here and there who are really committed to, making it a reality. One of the biggest things that in terms of resources that the community can provide, especially the young people who of the Hindu tradition, is connecting them with other members of the community, such as Manjuji and Shrikantji, who have not only the expertise but the kind of the spiritual knowledge to be able to transmit, because a lot of times what they lack is the guidance, and what they really want is just somebody to talk to, really, and share in that belief, share in that culture, and ask for practical advice about, how they should implement these principles from the Bhagavad Gita or the Upanishads. How can they make them more modern and relevant to their own lives? And some youth grow up with that in their family, so their family is a very strong support for them, and other youth don't have that as much. So having like weekly meetings or having prayer ceremonies that, community members can come and conduct those prayer ceremonies on the campus, that's really valuable in shaping the way this youth community grows on campus.
One definition of student is curiosity. And be curious. Being a student, be curious. Being curious itself accomplishes a lot. And try to understand, being curious, try to understand. It could be Hinduism, it could be Islam, it could be Christianity. As a student panel or a university, what they can do is once in a month or once in a quarter, bring in a new religious group. It could be Islam, it could be Christians, it could be Hinduism or Buddhists. And how do you pray? What kind of, is there any food restrictions? Is there any dress code in your religion? How do you interact with the spiritual part of your life? So being curious, just to get to know this an hour in a quarter helps a student body or a general public body to understand more about the other communities, other religions.
Well, I'm aware that we are out of time, and so I just want to say thank you to each of you for being here and sharing a little bit of your own story, but also helping to educate not only the people in the room, but those who will watch this at a later date. I feel like we've just widened our circle of friends, and that's how it starts. And so thank you for being here and for your very intelligent questions. Again, let's maybe perhaps a round of applause for our wonderful panelists. Thank you.
Thank you. And again, I echo Commissioner Ahmed's sentiments. You all did a stellar job, as I knew you would. I told them that at the outset. I said, we're in for a treat with you all. So I was right about that. And I'd also be remiss if I did not thank Commissioner Tim Ahmed for doing an outstanding job in facilitating the discussion. So, did you learn anything tonight? Good. I hope so. I know I did. And so these are the conversations that we like to have, and we'll keep these conversations going. And feel free to do exactly as our panel has suggested. Ask questions. Ask questions. Feel free to interface with our panelists. I'm speaking for you. Sorry. I know that you'd be open to interfacing with the audience tonight. And just feel free to ask those questions that you might not have had the opportunity to ask with the index cards. And also, I'm going to do a shameless plug in that we are continuing this cultural theme into September because the city of Winston-Salem is coordinating an International Village Cultural Festival. And so I think our commissioners and a couple of staff members will be grabbing some cards that are little postcards on the table and giving them to everyone. But we invite you all to come to International Village. It's a continuation of learning about the different cultures that are represented here in Winston-Salem. And so, again, we always have the Indo-U.S. Cultural Association represented. We have various Hispanic cultures represented. We have African cultures. I mean, you name it. And so it's really a great time to be had by all. We'll have music, food, dancing, all kinds of vendors, and we're just going to spend a day in Corpening Plaza celebrating the diversity that we have. So I invite you to come and join us and spread the word. But again, thank you very much for joining us tonight, and we hope you have a wonderful evening.
On
Thank
behalf
you.
of the